Welcome back to the Reier on YouTube channel. Travis Reier alongside Evan Reier. It is No Sleep Teal. And I don't think a lot of people, Evan, down there on the banks of the St. Johns River today slept all that well last night following the performance by the Jacksonville Jaguars in a what looked to be a narrow loss. It never really felt that close. I know the Jags, give them credit, got themselves in a position there, thanks in part to just how bad the Cleveland Browns are too. I mean, the
Yeah.
Browns with 13 penalties and multiple issues, 2 of 14 on third down, and you still lose at home if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. I hope you slept better, Evan, than a lot of people last night in Teal.
I tried. It probably doesn't look like it, but I tried my best. Yeah, I mean that's about as brutal of like a early season loss I think you can have, and it's partially because of what happened last week. It's all this. It's a combination of both. Where if you get the W this week, or if you get the W last week, the other one you go, oh, that really stings. But at least we're 1-1. Now it's kind of DEFCON 5 or whatever. Like it's red alert. You're
Yeah,
0 and 2.
there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's it's the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans
Yeah,
back to back. That's the train that
it's
feels
the
like it's
lights
coming.
at Orchard
Did you
Park.
get the sense, we were there, we were in the state, I was in the stadium yesterday. But just watching it, did you get the sense that there was like a malaise over this team after what happened in the opener in Miami? Like they just didn't have much energy? Or did you get the sense that maybe this was a team that realized what was on the line, even in week 2, understanding what's coming down the road? The uncertainty that is sensed from this team, just the lack of confidence in a lot of different ways. And I think even from the standpoint of who the hell are we exactly, right? When you talk about identity, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I think that plays into a lot of what you pick up in terms of that vibe from this team going back to really December of last year.
Well, I mean, especially I think the malaise kind of started to wear off, but the opening quarter, I mean, was just ridiculous in terms of how like empty and low level, like just low energy that the Jaguars were.
Mhm.
I mean, the offense does, avoid technically of 3 and out, but 5 plays in one first down. And then, to follow that up, the Cleveland Browns immediately go on a 90-yard touchdown drive. And you're just like,
And the
oh my,
defense helped them on
yeah,
that. I
yeah.
mean, I'm not going to hammer the defense really at all today,
But that
but
opening drive was rough.
that was a tone setter as much as the offensive ineptitude, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And, not to mention that, followed up with 3 more points, and all of a sudden you're down 2 scores against a team that, the Browns can keep a lead, obviously, with a 2-score lead. I don't see the Browns coming back, if they are down 2 scores. So you've done the exact thing that, you've really done the only thing that gives the Browns a proper chance to win this game, to make them favorites to win this game, and let them play with a lead. And it was, you know, you
It was
then get a
rough.
field goal, but it was gross. I
You
mean,
you
really.
realized you realized very quickly this was going to be an all day thing,
Oh
and
yeah,
I didn't feel good enough about the game going into it to think, oh, the Jags will come out. It'll be like the Colts game a couple years ago or something
right.
where they just hammer this team. Um, and yeah, the Browns are down guys too. I know the Evan Ingram situation, pregame warmups. He goes out with the hamstring. Doug Peterson talked earlier today. Sounds like that's going to be a week to week situation. Jags had 3 or 4 other guys go down in and out. Based on Doug's comments, it sounds like those 3 or 4 guys could be available this week. Maybe Ingram, the most questionable at this point, but it wasn't the energy early and it carried over in the stadium. Jags fans are great, man. In stadium, I don't think Jags fans get enough credit. They want to be a big part of the football game. But this team on Sunday never really gave them that opportunity. And look, whatever you think of the Browns, and they're bad right now. And again, they're down guys too, right? Nick Chubb, they're down Njoku, the tight end. They're down a couple of offensive tackles. But what they're not down is a defensive front seven. And they essentially went into that game Sunday and said, you know what? We think we can control this game with our front seven against that offensive line and that lack of a real run game. Didn't ask Deshaun Watson to win the game, really. Didn't convert third downs, but converted fourths and, did just enough to win. Jags committed enough mistakes to lose. You had a touchdown negated by an illegal shift by Dearness Johnson there in the second half. You had a Cam Little field goal go off an upright. Those things add up at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing is, like, I don't really think, we should be just like how you were saying, like, overall, the defense doesn't deserve a lot of hate for yesterday. Cam Little doesn't deserve, a ton of extra criticism just because he had a doink. That's pretty unlucky. But if that field goal goes in at the end of the game when the Jaguars are, at the Cleveland 27, but they need a touchdown. If they were down by 2 points, you kick a field goal and you do somehow exit that game with a W despite playing like dog crap. So, I mean, it's there's just so many different things. I mean, you get, into the red zone twice, you kick 2 field goals, you can't get, you don't get touchdowns on, 2 of your 3 red zone trips. And then, of course, little things like, as just like with the 3 points of Cam Little's miss, you have a safety that, if Trevor just gets rid of the ball there, it's still a 3-point game. And again, you're at least entering overtime. I mean, just a complete collapse.
Yeah, that safety felt like the Jags wanted to take a shot out of their own end. And I went into that play thinking they're going quick game here. They're just going to try to get 6 or 7 yards, get off the 2. What a hell of a punt, too, from the Browns in that situation.
Oh,
I mean, wow, to pin it right there at the 2. But they don't. They go with something that's going to require some time. And as was the case throughout the day, we kind of went into this game thinking you got to take care of your edge guys, beginning with Myles Garrett, obviously. But it was a problem for the Jags on the interior, too, in dealing with some of those pass rush types. And again, I think whatever the Browns are right now, they know who they are. Yeah. And when I watch the Jags on offense, I don't know who the hell the Jags are. I know who they probably think they should be from a personnel perspective. They think with Trevor that he's a top 10 passer in the NFL. I don't know if he's truly just, when we're talking about pocket passers in the NFL, I don't know if Trevor's a top 10 guy. Probably close. You got Travis Etienne at the running back position, more of a big play guy, versatile guy. You can throw it to him. Feel good about the wide receivers. Brian Thomas Jr. comes up big once again with a deep ball on Sunday. He did have a drop, but just down in and down out, it's kind of mystifying. Who is this? What is this offense? I'm almost to the point where I don't want to put a ceiling on Trevor, but is it almost time to just Ryan Tannehill him and change directions with your thinking and go, we're going to get a thumper back in here. We're going to get some people up front that can move people in the run game, and we're going to be Titan-like. We're going to tighten up from the Mike Vrabel years. I don't know. You may not be ready to go there.
I mean, I'm not ready to say tighten up, but I will say that I would love to play some, smash mouth physical football. I'd love to do that a bit more because I don't think, after,
just no physicality in anything really for this offense.
The entire
and pass protection isn't passive, right? I mean, you got to be physical in pass protection too.
The entire Doug Peterson experience, I wouldn't consider the Jags to be a physically dominant, offensive team. I don't really, but that's the problem is as nice as that would be to turn into that. How do you do that right now? I mean, how do you
that's the problem right now. It's too late.
What do you even what are you going to do?
But the point is, you're going to have Trevor Lawrence on your football team for a long time coming up here,
Yeah.
right? By the way,
But
Steve watching live here, Ev says if Trevor got rid of the ball there, it would have been intentional grounding. Yeah, pretty much. But in that situation, it's also where you got to make them make the call too.
yeah,
If you
that's
can
the
get
thing.
rid of
It's
the
like,
football, and I'm not on Trevor with that. I mean, again, the play call was to take a shot, was going to take some time, and he got pressure like he did on multiple occasions Sunday, right up into his face, and it is what it is, Ev.
no, and I didn't want to say that he's solely at fault for that. I mean, at the end of the day, he's getting sacked, and they so there's offensive blame for the offensive line, also blame for play calling to say, hey, let's take the risk here. Let's do it right here. Let's not get, a little bit further out or whatever. But it's a very bizarre one too, because I mean, Evan Ingram, going out right before the game, that's obviously
Yeah.
like a game changer, but he wasn't being utilized in week one. So, you're wondering about that. Christian Kirk had another I
One
mean,
catch
was
minus 1 yard.
one catch, -1 yard, targeted
And with
only
Evan out, you think, wow, his targets are definitely going to go up,
well,
right?
especially, yeah, he's the underneath guy. He's the guy you're looking at 8
Inside
yards down the
receiver.
field to,
Yeah.
catch the ball and run. And that wasn't happening at all. In fact, it was the Brenton Strange game, which if Brenton Strange is kind of, you know, he's second in the team in targets in that game, 6 targets. I mean, I get it. He's now in Evan Ingram's role, so he's going to get a little bit more attention, but it doesn't really make sense in that regard, and it also doesn't make sense that Brian Thomas shows that he has some explosiveness. You got to fire at him more. I don't know what you
Even
have
if
to
you
do to,
got to protect with 8,
yeah,
right?
like you have
Earlier
to
in the
give him more
game,
chances.
try to go over the top to him. If you got to protect with 7 or 8, I would think, maybe go there and get that guy. And even if you don't hit it, it sends the message early and kind of helps out your other guys. Steve checking back in again. Steve's feeling it right now, Ev. He
Let's
says,
go.
forget playoffs. Are we even going to win a game this season? I just want to win right now. I hear you, Steve. And as we talked about, Bills coming up next. We'll talk about that later in the week a little bit more. This is more of a review from Sunday, a post-mortem, I guess you could say. And then the Texans, 2-0 Texans coming up down the road too. Jags are going to win some games. I still
Yeah,
believe that. I mean, I'm not to the point where I'm thinking, oh, here we go. First overall pick Jags all over again. Just look at Carolina. I mean, come on.
yeah, no,
Carolina's a team that I don't know is going to win a game. Going through a
yeah.
quarterback change, going from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton,
Good
two
luck.
games in. But I mean, there's legitimate reason for concern. That's what we're talking about today, and with a lot of that being on the offensive side of the ball. Although again, I thought defensively early in the game, and then even late after doing such a good job on third downs, the Browns hit a couple of big ones with Jerry Judy that were
Yeah.
especially painful. So, situational football's got to be better. Complementary football. We just haven't really seen that from this team through 2 games, and really didn't see it all that much at the end of last season.
Well, it's very stop start right now. These past 2 weeks have basically just been, every single time the Jaguars kind of seem to get some momentum, they either shoot themselves in the foot or, the other team, finds a way to kind of get in there instead. I think about like in the game on Sunday, and or no, the entire both of the past 2 weeks, no turnovers forced yet from the defense. Again, we're not here to harp on the defense, but at some point, there's got to be, something. You
Did
gotta,
you think, even with the tackle situation for the Browns, that the Jags were able to affect Deshaun Watson enough? I thought they got in the neighborhood on
yeah,
multiple occasions. I know Trayvon, one time it looked like working off a twist, looked like he was right there, and he
on
got
top of them.
shook a little bit by Deshaun. So give Deshaun some credit. He can still do some of that. But relative to his number, his contract number right now,
Yeah,
um, that wasn't an elite guy that the Jags dealt with yesterday. Amari Cooper at the wide receiver position had a big drop in that game. I thought Judy came up big later. Elijah Moore was a bit of a problem early in the game. The secondary for the Jags, Evan, with Tyson Campbell out, no Darnell Savage in the game. What did you think of Monteric Brown? in the playback there, because they continue to kind of go through some guys because of some absences.
I think what we saw from Monteric Brown was we saw him, do what he's really good at, which in the kind of shallow stuff as a tackler, all that stuff, very assured. He had 2 tackles for loss in that game, blew up some, kind of the quick game stuff. That was encouraging. He also got beat, a few times. Kind of expected that to happen. Overall, I don't think you can, especially hate on the secondary. They limited Watson to 5.5 yards an attempt. I mean, it's not like he was picking up, huge shots all the time. But, I mean, Jerry Jeudy kind of terrorizing the Jaguars late really put a different kind of filter on that performance because, I mean, really, Watson still only finished with 185 yards. He was kind of looking like he might not get to 150. As we were going into the game. But that's also partially because the Browns were up 2 scores. They definitely weren't thinking, hey,
Nope.
let's take more risks with Deshaun.
Yeah, it's crazy that Deshaun Watson is what, a $250 million guaranteed quarterback,
And they're
and
like
the
trying to hide
Browns
him.
are trying to play around him.
Yeah.
But hey, um, give Stefanski and that staff credit. I thought, again, as I said earlier, that's not a good Browns team, but at least the Browns know who the Browns are right now,
Yeah.
and still have some strengths, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, and just sort of went into that thing Sunday and said, "Look, we think our guys in our front seven are way better than your offensive line, and we're going to be able to kind of dictate." From that perspective. Again, from an injury perspective, Evan, big shot that Tank Bigsby took on the
Yeah.
kickoff return. I mean, that was huge. And it sounds like he's going to be okay. X-rays proved negative. Should be able to go, it sounds like anyway, for the Bills and Buffalo coming up next Monday night. Ingram, as we talked about, week to week. Cisco still has a groin that he's dealing with. Sounds like he's going to be okay as well. So, given what we saw on Sunday, uh, not the worst case scenario from a health perspective heading up to New York State.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like they've dodged, the extra, insult to injury kind of stuff of, if they had been, if it had gotten even worse and it was like, well, you're not going to have Bigsby, you're not going to have whatever, then it'd really, really be tough to look at the next 2 weeks and feel any form of optimism. But if they can, get these guys back, then yeah, there's absolutely, a much better chance for them to win. But even then right now, I don't know. Like it's hard for me to even find positivity in Bixby coming back because I I don't this is something we've talked about off the podcast, but we're I think both wondering who should be starting, who should be the feature back at this point, and who should be the complimentary one because I just don't know if Etienne is a 3 down guy or if he's ever going to really be that. Is he more useful as kind of a guy that you use in a gadget sense, whereas Bigsby's the guy that, you kind of saw in week 1 where he, ran the ball 14 times. He was basically became the lead RB by the end of the game.
Yeah, if you're in an offense like the Dolphins, I love Travis Etienne in my
Yeah.
offense, like Mostert or those backs down there, uh, Achan, those type of backs, man, that you can get in space, flip it out there to them. Every once in a while, hit them between the tackles with quick stuff. Uh, but that's not this offense, as we
Mm-mm.
know right now, and so that'll continue. You know what? I'm not going to try to call for an upset of the Bills. It's still too fresh. The
Yeah.
events of Sunday. I'm still a little traumatized, but I can see a performance kind of like what the Bengals put forth in Kansas City yesterday. Maybe not win the game, but do enough in a close loss or a very competitive game, one way or the other, to make you think, see, there's those guys, right? Now, the problem with that at this point at 0-2, it doesn't matter if you don't start winning some
Yeah.
games. We're beyond that. So somehow, some way, got to figure out how to get it done in Buffalo next Monday night. What have you seen just from a divisional standpoint? I guess that's maybe the silver lining in all this for the Jags, although the Texans being 2-0 isn't a great thing. But hey, The rest of the division hadn't been much either.
No, I mean, it's funny because I don't know what's in the water in the AFC South, at least for the other three teams outside of Houston, but for some reason, all three fan bases were thinking like, "Oh no, we're actually going to be pretty good. I think we're going to make the playoffs this year." Like you saw Titans fans saying, "Oh well, Will Levis is going to take the step forward," and then they're in a worse place than the Jaguars, I would say. Like they have dropped games in more brutal fashion the past 2 weeks than the Jaguars have, and that's saying something. The Colts have just, they had to play a good Texans team and then kind of just laid an egg yesterday. And then meanwhile, the Texans are kind of just handling business. Although I was saying this to you, I think a little bit through text, like the Texans had lost yesterday. I do think that, maybe we're at DEFCON 4 instead of 5 because you're only one game back. You're thinking, okay, well, shoot.
Yeah.
And they lost to a Bears team that also beat the Titans. Like, what is going on there?
The
But
problem with the Texans Sunday night and watching that game for me, Evan, was that defense. Forget about CJ Stroud and the receivers, which
they look
and Joe
so
Mixon is,
scary.
I'm on record. I hated the Texans signing Joe Mixon because he brings that physicality to
Yeah.
that position that can be a problem for
He
the
got he
Jags
got his ankle
defensively.
rolled really bad and still came back
Came
in like
back, went and got an
yeah,
X-ray and came
yeah,
back. That is the kind of dude.
yeah.
I know maybe in terms of dynamics within your team, he might not be for everybody, but I know on game day, what I see from Joe Mixon is a guy that I want in my backfield. And
Yeah.
and again, offensively, you kind of know what that deal is with Tunzel at left tackle and those receivers. But that defensive line for the Texans, when I think about this Jags offensive line and this Jags offense in general right now, I get more hope thinking about the road game in Buffalo than I do the road game in Houston. And that's
Oh, yeah.
understanding Josh Allen can still be a real problem. I just think the Texans might end up being a tougher matchup for the Jags than the Bills coming up.
Oh, absolutely. And also a secondary that's probably even after Buffalo will more than likely not be back to 100% health, may not even have Tyson Campbell back. Enjoy going up against that fleet of receivers,
Yeah.
in Houston, who like yesterday didn't even have that great of a game for as good as that
They
unit
don't really
is.
need Stephon Diggs,
Yeah,
you
he's
know?
extra. He's extra. But that's the thing is that when Tank Dell had a pretty rough game yesterday. He was noticeably like dropped two passes, noticeably wasn't, at his best. When you don't like when you have a guy not perform, but you have a group that deep, okay, well, Stephon Diggs, come on, like you can help,
Right.
help a little bit more,
John
whatever.
Mechie struggles to
To get on the
get
field,
on the
it's
field,
it's insane.
and he'd be
A
a
Dalton
really good
Schultz
2-3 for
Dalton
somebody
Schultz is
else.
a great tight end, and he struggles to get tight.
Yeah.
Get targets.
Here's the
Because
thing
Nico
too.
Collins is
Yeah, he was a
like,
beast last night.
but
He was a lot. But
so
here, the
yeah. Sorry,
quarterback
go ahead.
situation I wanted to ask you about, because going into the season, we're talking about Trevor and CJ being in their own thing in the division, and then Levis and Anthony Richardson kind of being in that second tier. But
Yeah,
2 games in, would you say Trevor's still more in a group with Richardson and Levis than he is with Stroud? I think I still take, I take Trevor. I still see these horrific moments from Levis and Richardson.
oh yeah.
They do some things that are just highlight real worthy, and then they do some things that are just catastrophic. But is Trevor still, in your opinion, closer to CJ Stroud than he is to those other 2 quarterbacks?
I think he is. I do think he is, but it's getting to the point where you got to show it. Like you can say all this different stuff about talent, about overall ability, arm strength, whatever you want to,
Yeah.
but at this point, it feels like unrealized potential with Trevor.
Where's
It,
the it with Trevor? That's still
yeah.
what you're kind of waiting on. That whatever it is, and understanding you got to have help around you. But this is a $50 million guy now, so
In
you're expecting him to lift boats. And the first couple of games, it hasn't felt like that. Now, guys have let him down. I'm not saying they haven't, but you get the sense that the CJ Strouds, the Mahomes, even Aaron Rodgers at 74 years old, we still see it from. They still have that ability, especially in key moments, to kind of turn the tide. And I just don't think from a personality standpoint that's ever going to be Trevor. So if you're thinking he's going to be that inspirational guy from that perspective, that's not how he's wired. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
he's going to have to do it through his play on a consistent basis.
yeah, that's the thing is I think of in chess and other games there's a thing called a win condition, which essentially your win condition is supposed to be what is your strategy to win? Like where are you going to basically find the advantage that your opponent cannot deal with? And with Trevor right now, I don't know what he's doing to provide that. If Trevor was just unbelievably accurate from 10 yards and in, like if he just never missed throws and it was always on the money and they could always just hit this quick game stuff and consistently move the ball, which they're able to do, I would say, well, but not great, not elite. So it's not there. It's okay. Well, maybe he's really great at taking downfield shots. That's never been Trevor's game, really. Like
No.
is so, or okay,
Time
well
to tighten up. Time to
maybe he
tighten up.
maybe he wins games with his legs. He doesn't do that either. He had a really nice run yesterday, but he doesn't do that. So we have to figure that out. The Jaguars have to figure it out. Like, what can we do? What are the strengths of Trevor Lawrence's game that we can highlight and kind of use to abuse the other team? And and you're so right about the leader thing, because I used to kind of get frustrated with Jaguars fans where over the past few years, you would see a video of Trevor talking to the team in the tunnel or whatever. And, Trevor haters would just say like, guys, is this your leader? Like, you think this guy can lead? If you go watch the video from the tunnel yesterday,
I saw it. Yeah.
it's rough.
I give him credit for trying, but yeah, it's kind of cringy. It
It
is, but
just, and
he's
and that's on
trying
the
to be
social
that
media thing
guy.
too. You got to pick and choose, like
Yeah.
whatever. But like, I appreciate him trying, because yes, you have to. You just got,
You're supposed to be that guy.
you just
Yeah.
got paid. Like, you can't just walk out there and not do that if you're getting paid like that. But I just don't know if it's genuine. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's if
I think it is for
charisma is
him.
actually
I
there.
think to him it's him being as genuine as he can be. It's
Yeah.
how it's received, you know, in that type of environment. We got Steve checking back in. He says Mac Jones is a lot more energetic than Trevor. Could Mac Jones somehow give the team a spark? Look, I've said it before going back to the preseason. I think Trevor could use some of what Mac's got in that sort of area. And then Mac obviously could use some of the physical attributes that Trevor's got. We talk about items and issues for this Jaguar team, though, right now. Trevor's not in my top 2 or 3. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not all that far down the list, but I think that's the problem here is that the Jags have got more pressing issues starting really from guard to guard. I mean, if you
Yeah.
can't protect your quarterback from the guys closest to him on the line of scrimmage, it's going to be tough for I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, by the way, 0-2 now, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's been kind of a weird start to this season. I think, though, because you've seen it from guys like Lamar, maybe not as much in the playoffs, there's not as much panic probably within that Be More fan base as there is down here in Duval, because this, unfortunately, has been a little bit of a reoccurring theme for the fan base.
Yeah, I think, Baltimore is also in a situation where they've proven that they can, win a division like consistently. And, they're also looking at their division thinking, okay, well, the Steelers are 2-0 and they're leading the division, but, us and the Bengals, are 0-2. Like the Bengals are probably the other team that you would have maybe considered to be second favorites to win that division. And, both of those teams are now 0-2. There's a lot of weird results all around the NFL, so there's reasons to not panic in that sense. But I don't know if this Jaguars team is good enough to really warrant feeling, okay, like calm down, like it's gonna work out. Like I don't see it at the moment. And, part of
Well,
that is,
you only play one true road game in the first month and a half of the season.
yeah,
That's problematic too, right?
yeah,
Because even after Buffalo and Houston, you're going to Europe, you know. So it's like we'll see you guys in late October, I guess, right?
yeah, exactly. And, it can just, we talk about momentum like in games, but in season, if you go 0-3, 0 and I mean, if you hit 0-4, I mean, I just don't like, I don't know what
What's
there
the
is.
number on 0-2 teams making the playoffs? I mean, it's like 10% or
It's,
something that
yeah, it's a like 10% of teams that have gone 0-2 have made the playoffs.
I saw the stat
Um,
from I think it was D-Rock Duraco yesterday too. Trevor now 0-7 in his last 7 starts.
yep. The Jags have won one game in the last 8 games, and CJ Beathard was the starting quarterback.
Hey,
So
yeah.
I mean,
It's been a
I
desert. It's been a
it's
desert,
well,
Ev.
and
And
speaking
there's
of
not an
last
oasis on the horizon here in the immediate future.
speaking of last year too, like the red zone issues, I've never been more tired of anything in my
To me,
dang
red
life,
zone goes back to can you legitimately run the football?
and they
Like,
can't.
if you can bang it in the run game, you're typically a pretty good red zone team, not only because you can run it in, but the threat of the run helps you throw it in the red zone, right? You see these tight ends for these teams that score 10, 12 touchdowns a year. That's usually because they're part of teams that can run it on a consistent basis.
Right. I
And that's
mean,
not this team.
yeah, and okay, again, if you can't do that, then you need to have such a strong offensive identity that it's always clear that you're able to pick up your spots. And that's what's weird is that 2 years ago, especially during the good run, the back half of that 2022 season, the Jags still weren't necessarily amazing at running the football, but they clearly had like a plan, and they were getting the ball to guys like Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram in a consistent manner that made sense. And they, I would say, had a less talented offense than they do right now. So what's up? Like, it just doesn't make sense really at all. And I don't know if there's anything
Well,
to,
those teams still played complementary football, right? Like even
yeah,
if they weren't great offensively, 2017 you had a hell of a defense.
yeah,
So, kind of like the Browns on Sunday, you played to that strength, you kicked it good, you held on to the football, possessed it, didn't turn it over, didn't put your defense in some tough spots. You don't really have that with this team, with this Jaguars team. The defense at times has done some really good things through the first 2 games. But again, as we said yesterday, still had some issues early and late in the game, getting off the game, getting the game started, and then closing the game. So, complimentary football, not a friend of this team either right now. When again, I think about the sort of big picture prospects, schedule wise, the second half of the season, you could make up some ground, especially where the division is concerned. But
yeah.
wins of any kind you got to have here in the very near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's desperate is the word I would use to describe like going into Buffalo on Monday. I mean, this team better play with a sense of desperation. You don't want to see them, flailing or whatever. You want to see a sense of confidence, but what you said earlier, you have to go be competitive in that game. If it's anything other than that, if you get,
Doors blown off. Yeah.
boat raced on national television to go 0-3. Yeah,
Then
I
you're
don't
going to
know if there's,
Houston on a short week.
and then yeah, go enjoy that, and then I know the Jaguars have owned the Colts at home, for the most part for the past decade, but if you're 0-4, I mean, it can get really bad really fast. Like
Yeah.
it's insane how fast things have changed because Trevor mentioned it, everybody mentioned it. It was like, well, we had such a great training camp in preseason. It's like, well, that means Jack. That means
Just
Jack right now.
just reaffirms what preseason means, right?
Yeah, it does not matter.
Yeah.
Like it
The
matters
Chiefs
in
went
terms of
0-3 in the
it matters
postseason.
in terms of your preparation.
Yeah.
but your results, well,
No.
we win undefeated in
How
preseason
you
games.
looked in joint practices against the Bucks and things
How
like that.
how
Would you
your
rather
cut
be the Jags or
candidates
the
look.
Bucks right now?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. It's really tough. Like it's really difficult
Well, I
to
mean, I'm drinking red
swallow.
wine while we're doing this. I mean, that
I'm
speaks to the
I've
speaks to the
I've
issues.
been considering, different churches, different, I can trying to, find a community to confide
Support.
in.
And
Yeah,
that's kind of the thing that we started out talking about today too, like with Sunday. I came out of the game yesterday. I left the stadium yesterday thinking I don't understand how they couldn't have more energy, in
yeah,
that situation. But then I kind of thought about it, and I don't know if it was like lack of energy or if it was just like I'm not really sure about what we're doing or who we are, like this lack of confidence and uncertainty. Almost like they felt the gravity of that moment and what that game meant, but then to go along with it, there just wasn't enough assuredness, self assuredness, I guess,
yeah.
from this
Well,
team.
I think the nature in which you lose the Dolphins game, you
It
blow it
hurts.
essentially. I think that definitely jarred them a little bit. Probably added a higher sense of pressure for that game. But it's also, I know it doesn't really matter and all that stuff, but just about every single person, whether it was Doug Peterson or Trevor Lawrence or anybody on the Browns, all of them commented that Trevor Bank sucked. That that
And
sucked.
The Browns said afterwards, I think Miles Garrett commented
Where
afterwards
it's
that
like, oh yeah,
they
like they
heard
think
about
it's
it
like a
too.
homecoming game.
Oh,
Like they're
this is your
playing,
house.
yeah, like, oh, like we're just gonna open the
Walk in
season
your
with a
trap,
W.
walk in
And
your trap, take over your trap, right?
Doug was asked about it on Saturday or Friday, he just was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah. Like
What
everything
about
is down.
Trevor's comments post game too yesterday when asked about the offense and he just said we suck.
Yeah, we suck. And he also, players typically will say that, it's an everybody thing, but they won't say that the coaching also had a bad game.
Right.
And he did directly say that yesterday. I
Yeah,
am
that's concerning.
wondering, yeah, I am, he did
Yeah,
say it.
I'm not. I don't care about the play calling
Yeah.
administration anymore. I don't care if it's Press Taylor
Who's
or if
doing
it's Doug
it or,
Peterson.
yeah,
I'm more interested in what are the concepts. What's the plan here. Than I
yeah,
am who's calling the actual plays. Because 2 games in, we haven't seen anything consistently that speaks to this is who we are or who we'd at least like to be on the offensive side of the ball.
yeah.
Disjointed is the word I used for the graphic for today's show. And that's the word that comes to mind for me when I watch the Jags, specifically on the offensive side of the ball right now.
Yeah. And something we've mentioned about just wanting to be kind of a more physical team, a team that maybe yes truly does focus on the run. If you go look at NFL trends, play calling of this year especially, it's already an extreme uptick in a return to the run. Teams are running the ball more than they have in probably a decade. And it's because it's the natural equilibrium of things, right?
Things
If
come
you,
around
yeah, come back
cyclical.
around, whatever. The Jags can
Teams start
try and
playing.
hop
Yeah.
on that trend, and that's probably for the best. But if they don't do that, like you're
uh,
basically going to be playing into the hands of defenses that are wanting you, they're daring you to pass the football.
Defenses are playing base nickel now.
Yeah,
I mean, even against 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, they're still rolling with 5 DBs. And
yeah,
they're playing some 2 safeties, deep safeties. And so they're kind of, at least pre snap, the look is run the football at us. We're not strong in the box. We got 2 safeties back. But you're right. That is an interesting look at that for sure in terms of trends and how things change and then come right back around in the National Football League. Evan, anything else before we get out of here? I know we're going to have a special guest coming up here on No Sleep Teal in advance of the Buffalo game. Looking forward to your partner in crime, Mr. Dom Tibbetts,
oh
going to
yeah.
jump on with us.
He's going to give us the lowdown from the Bills' perspective. Dom is a diehard football fan in general, but works for WKBW in Buffalo, is a sports anchor for them. Was on the Thursday night game. Don't know if you spotted him, but he was on the sideline a few times, and
Nice.
you can see him. But no, very excited to chat with Dom. We may be able to also, have some fun conversations with him, rather than,
Well, I'm getting
yeah,
the wings. I'm getting the wings
yeah, we're gonna
recommendation because
get the advice on the food and
we're
the
going to be up
wings.
there.
Maybe he can, at this point, I just want to walk away from our experience in Buffalo having a good time. So if he can tell me where to go to get put through a table,
Barville. Yeah.
where to tailgate or what to, whatever that looks like. Where it should be a fun combo. So yeah, we will have him on, and then we'll be just days away from making that trip up there. So
Yeah, I want the wing recommendations. I don't
I don't
need to
know,
go to all of them in
but
Buffalo.
yeah,
I just
just give me
need
the
the
bet. Give me
best.
the one.
The
Yeah,
best wings in Buffalo. And I understand
absolutely.
it's not Anchor Bar, which has been said to be the originator. There's some
Nah,
debate about that.
Dom
And
will
I
show us that for
and
sure.
beef and weck. Have you heard of those sandwiches?
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Hey,
roast beef
we can get
sandwiches?
one of those too. I
Yeah.
Dom did inform me that because the game's on Monday, he's got a Sunday evening off. So he said we will definitely be going to.
Nice.
He
Yes.
can give us a little tour, whether it's wings, a beer.
All of it.
We'll let the
Yes.
we'll
Yeah.
do it Buffalo style. It'll
He'll
be
be our
fun.
guy. He'll be our Guy Fieri. He'll take us to Flavor
It'll
Town.
be our last supper before we watch the Jaguar. No, no, I'm not gonna.
No, no, no. Like I said earlier,
Positivity.
I
Yeah.
expect an almost bounce back performance.
The Jags will cover. The Jags will
That's
cover.
all I'm saying.
They didn't cover yesterday, but they will cover
Yeah.
on Monday. So,
Oh gosh.
just stay strong, y'all.
At least we can have fun with it, Ev, at the end
Absolutely.
of the day. Hey Ev, appreciate it as always. Look forward to catching up a little bit later in the week.
Fantastic. I'll talk to you soon.
For Evan Reier, Travis Reier, thanking you for joining us right here on Reier on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted to all of our content as it drops right here on Reier on YouTube. And if you don't mind, a thumbs up, a like would help us out tremendously as well. For Ev, I'm Trav. Check you again real soon. Song, everybody.
See ya.